Hi, welcome to Dead Principles, a chronicle of decay. A quick note before I get into the main crux of this video. I saw in my last video, I talked about Pete Buttigieg, and I saw him yesterday on an interview on Pod Save America, which is going to be the subject of the video today, is the Pod Boys. But I wanted to address what Pete said really quickly because in my last video, I pointed out the fact that Pete Buttigieg is not a representative of the people. He's just another political operative, and he's only interested in helping himself. And that's very clear through his actions, which I discussed. But in this most recent interview I saw with him, he gave me some fresh examples, so I didn't want to leave those out. First of all, in my last video, I said that he moved to Michigan to run for a Senate seat there. That was his plan, but I did a little reading yesterday and discovered that he's no longer going to run for a Senate seat in Michigan because although he loves the Michigan people, he feels that he could be of greater service somewhere else. And where he thinks he could be of greater service is in a presidential campaign. That's right. Pete wants to run for president. God help us all. So during his interview, he did a very, very good job of dodging any questions about what's going on in Palestine, which is very interesting to me because he was really walking a thin line on that one because he wanted to make it really, really clear that he's horrified about all the dead babies because nobody likes dead babies, but he's not actually upset enough about it to make any declarative statements about what Israel should do differently. No. What he thinks we need to do is take a step back and reevaluate or something. I don't know what taking a step back will do at this point, quite frankly. I mean, it would probably be a good idea to take a few steps back from any location in Palestine since it's still being bombarded by Israel on a daily basis. And don't you dare try to collect any food aid or else you're going to get shot. So I'm not sure what taking a step back, like the babies are starving to death today, Pete. So what does taking a step back do other than delay any assistance for these people who desperately, desperately need it? Also, why is it so hard for people to acknowledge a genocide is occurring when Israel is the one responsible for it? When there's a genocide in Africa, people say, oh, it's a genocide. When there's really anywhere else in the world that I've ever heard of in Cambodia, I'm pretty sure they were throwing words around there too. But then all of a sudden, it's some geographical anomaly that as soon as you enter any of the borders claimed by Israel, now suddenly genocides are impossible. They just don't happen. Isn't that remarkable? Really, I don't know. I don't know how they manage that, but it's an impressive feat. So yeah, Pete, way to be non-committal about anything involving the death of children. Way to take a stand, buddy. You're really showing your leadership skills there. So, yeah, I just am continually disgusted by the spineless, manipulative presentations that these people give and suggest that just the fact that they try to claim that they have some sort of position of moral high ground while still just standing there watching the slaughter happen is really remarkable and frankly pretty disgusting. I don't know how I don't know how these people hold their heads up high, honestly, because they're bad people. So yeah, Pete sucks still, and he's gonna run for president though. So let's see what he can gaslight us into believing then. All right, so now that I've moved past my I'm still annoyed with Pete Buttigieg part of this video, I want to get into the main crux, which is political podcasters. This is probably going to take me multiple videos to get through because there's more than one there's more than one political podcast. I'm not going to cover all of them, but the ones that I frequent, I'm gonna basically tear those apart, as best I'm able, at least. Um, and then after I get through with the political podcast, I want to dive into the pseudo political podcasts because I have even more to say about those morons. But let's start with the semi legit people, at least. Okay, so to be clear, the reason why I listen to lefty podcasts is really at this point, it I listen to them in order to try to understand the whole spectrum of debate that's going on. And you might think, well, if you want to know the whole spectrum, then why are you only listening to things on the left? Shouldn't you be listening to things on the right as well? Well, that is a valid argument. My problem is that the right has gone so far off the deep end that honestly, at this point, it's very difficult for me to, because unless you're listening to it regularly, it's like a soap opera. Like there's a new plot line every week. So unless you're really keeping up with a person gets lost. And so if I check in with anybody on the right, I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about right now. This is some, new conspiracy theory that I've not been remotely exposed to. So yeah, basically it kind of gets too crazy. And so I just think, well, I don't know what's going on there. So then I go to the left because the left will digest what the right is saying and then obviously regurgitate it in some new form, but you still get the main points. So, okay, this is the thing they're focusing on. This is what they're upset about. Fine. So it at least gives me some concept of where they're at. But it's been getting more and more difficult to even listen to things on the left because people on the left seem to be starting to lose it as bad as people on the right. So it's, what I mean? Like the harder that the right leans into some kind of conspiracy or something, the harder the left then leans back into, institutionalism or something. So you've got people on the right saying it's all wrong, it's all a sham, it's all nothing. And then you've got people on the left going, no, it's ironclad solid, it's reliable. Neither one of those things is true. And I think most people, even if they're not paying attention, just intuitively understand neither one of these groups is representing things accurately. And so how much help are they going to be in assisting the rest of us in our understanding of what's going on in the world? If they don't, if they're not adhering to reality, so how can we assess reality based on what they're saying? We can't. So it becomes just that much more difficult to figure out what's going on because there's no one that we can just listen to. Everyone that you listen to, you then have to interpret or extrapolate what they're saying and consider their inherent biases and what their other motivations are, both the ones you know about, and maybe you have to acknowledge there are some motivations they have that you might not know about because a lot of people do a lot of shady things in secret because their public face is what they're concerned with, maintaining. And so as long as nobody finds out publicly that they're jerks, it's fine. So yeah, it's been getting more and more difficult to listen to just anybody. But I do think it is very important, at the very least, and the reason why I want to focus on the Pod Save Boys is because they have a very large platform on the liberal side of things. People listen to them. They get notable people for interviews and things like this. They do that consistently. So if you want to know what's going on in sort of the, mainstream left orbit, then they are people that it would be beneficial to check in on occasionally. And so that's why I do it. But I have had problems with them for a while. I was already real mad at them when Biden was still in office because they seem to me to be really failing to keep people informed about things. And I'm only going to address one example here today because it is the thing that has annoyed me the most. So here's the problem. Pod Save America and everybody else on the left was, and to be clear, we need to go back to at this point what is basically at the edge of America's collective memory about a year ago. I'm going to talk about things that happened more than a year ago. You're just going to have to trust me that they happened. If you can't remember for yourself, I understand. No one remembers anything anymore. This is a country of amnesia. But it really did. These things did happen. Trust me. You can go back and find the videos yourself if you really want to. So, about a year ago was when Biden showed himself publicly, and we all realized, oh my God, he's on the verge of death. And that's saying something, because when he looked like a wizened old man, he was standing next to a man only a few years younger than himself. So, when you're standing next to an old guy and you look absolutely ancient, things aren't going well. And it was up until that speech, the whole year leading up to that speech, everyone on the left, what were they saying? Biden hasn't lost a beat. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's like, some kind of political dynamo. Can't believe it. None of us can keep up. Wow, it's incredible. Clearly this dude's chugging Pedialyte. Whatever they were saying, they said everything was fine. And that includes the Pod Boys, everyone insisted everything was fine right up to the moment that he showed up on camera. And that's when they all gave up the fight. And the reason why they did that was because they knew they couldn't argue with what our eyes were seeing. That this dude is way too old. He can barely complete a sentence. It looks like he's 2 hours late for his nap. This guy can't run anything. He certainly isn't going to be able to run the country. And so it was only after we all saw that with our own eyes that anyone on the left acknowledged that there was a problem. I remember the Pod Save episode immediately after that speech. They were very quiet and reserved. Oh, well, and then they tried to claim that they were the ones pointing out that there was a problem. No, you weren't. You guys didn't point anything out. And this is not just an idle claim. I can prove it. And what's my proof? Well, like I said, we're going to have to go back farther than a year, so probably nobody remembers this anymore. But about a year before that speech, there was a guest on Pod Save America. Dean Phillips, Representative Dean Phillips is the guy they had on. And, well, what Dean was doing, or Representative Phillips, I'll try to be respectful, what he was trying to do at that time, a year before the election, was he was trying to argue for an open primary for the Democratic Party. And he said very clearly, Biden's pretty old, and we don't really have anybody else lined up to replace him if he, isn't available to complete his term. And this is a worrying thing. So we should have an open primary, a Democratic primary, where the public gets to see some different options and make a choice for themselves instead of just having Biden shoved down our throat. That was the argument that he was making. And I want to be really clear about this. Jon Favreau laughed in his face. And in fact, all the Pod Boys were incredibly dismissive and derisive of the very idea of an open primary, which is very interesting to me because isn't the whole thing about Pod Save America saving democracy? How are you saving democracy if you're the one saying that it should be stifled, Pod Boys? How are you helping anything in that situation? So I was really disgusted by that. I was really disgusted by the way they treated Mr. Phillips, poor Dean. And I mean, everybody else gave it to him too. So it wasn't like they were the only ones. But for people who just, Pod Save America, it kind of suggests that they think they're the savior of something. So what are you guys saving other than your own careers? I'm just curious. Because it's not democracy. Because if you cared about democracy, you would have supported an open democratic election, an open primary. some choice for the people. But nah, you guys thought that that was hilariously funny and stupid. So I really resent you guys for that. And I just have to say generally that all of the pod boys, the smugness that those guys constantly exude is really, really irritating. And I know that I am not the only person who they annoy, because I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine the other day, and as soon as I mentioned Pod Save America, her reaction was, ugh. And I was so pleased with her. That's why she's my friend, because she feels the same way that I do about these douchebags. So yeah, the smugness is really, really annoying. And I really wonder, what is your smugness, pod boys? What is your smugness and your arrogance? What's that based on? Because I mean, your whole business started as Trump resistance. And so I feel like, and I'm guessing, that you had a lot more growth during Trump's last term than you did when Biden was in office. So I kind of assume that you guys must be thrilled that Trump is back in office, because now you can wrap yourselves in that blanket again of being the heroes trying to save democracy from the tyrant. But, if you were worried about fighting tyrants, then why didn't you support an open primary when, they were trying to shove, the old man down our throat again, which nobody wanted it. And it wasn't a winter plan then. So I don't know. It just seems kind of like you guys are full of shit in that regard. But the other thing, I just, you guys keep making the joke. Oh, we're just, the coastal elites. Bah ha ha. That's not a joke. That's reality. You guys are those coastal elite douchebags. That is exactly what you are. You need to accept that fact. It's not a joke. When you laugh about it, when you try to make jokes about it, all you do is demonstrate how unbelievably oblivious you are to your own behavior. Ugh. And while I'm on the subject of coastal douchebags, this is just a little personal thing of mine that I want to talk to. I want to bring it up to the group. There was a term that I heard a lot on podcasts up until, I want to say, a few years ago. It's been a while since I've heard anyone use this term. And the reason why I bring it up is because it is a term that was absolutely used by the pod boys, and it exemplifies their problematic attitude. And the problematic attitude of, frankly, a lot of people that I am aware of in the podcasting space. So the term that I used to hear, and every time I heard it, it made me angry. Oh, and also, I think, this is a guess, I have no information to back this up, but I think that the reason why this term stopped being used was because the people that were using it realized that to a portion of their audience, it was a rude and really offensive term, frankly. And then these same people realized, oh, I am insulting my audience when I say this. I should stop saying this unless I want to alienate my audience. That's my guess. And that's the guess I make because I know what a strong and visceral reaction I had when I heard this term. And I assume it made other people angry as well. The term I am referring to is flyover states. Have you ever heard anyone reference that on a podcast? They're usually someone living in California or New York, and they refer to flyover states. And I really, really hated hearing that term because it is so inherently dismissive, and because I live in one of those flyover states. And you know what? It's not a place worth ignoring to me. To me, it's pretty damn important. So every time you guys point out that you couldn't care less about it or any of the states surrounding mine, because apparently if it's not on a coast, it doesn't matter, that makes me hate your guts. And that makes me want to ignore everything that you say because you clearly have no concept of what my life is like because you don't even think my state is worth considering. You don't even think it's worth mentioning by name. Just one of those dumb states in the middle where the people don't matter and I don't care. So I hated hearing that term. Every time I heard it, it made my blood boil. And I really think that people figured out how just rude and dismissive it was. And I think that's why they stopped using it. But I'm very curious. Do you also live in a flyover state like me? How did you feel when you heard those people using that term? Did it make you want to do something aggressive towards them like it made me feel? I'd really like to know. So genuinely, if you have a strong reaction to that, please leave me a comment about that. I really want to hear from you. Okay. So that's just little my pet peeve. Flyover states is just, ugh. So yeah. Okay. So back to the Pod Boys. I just heard in the most recent episode that I watched, as John was talking to Pete, so two great minds in the Democratic Party. John was worrying that should the Democratic Party be worried that the Democratic base has lost trust in the party? Yeah, John. Yeah, they should be worried about that. But more than that, John, I think you should be worried about the trust that you broke with your audience, just like the rest of the Pod Boys did when you totally ignored anyone suggesting that there might be problems, and you towed the Biden line right up to the point that you couldn't. It's not. You had no worries ahead of that debate. You claim to have privately said things. Well, that didn't do anything, did it? Maybe you should have said something publicly if that's really what you were thinking and feeling. But I don't believe you. I think you were ready to go Biden, Biden, Biden. Right. I bet if he had pulled off that debate, you would have stayed pro Biden right up to the point that he keeled over dead on the debate stage, probably. So, your legitimacy is very much in question, and I hope not only by me. Because you guys are sus. I think you're pro party. You're not pro people. And then immediately after the election, immediately after the debate, you guys tried to claim that like you were the first people to notice, like you were the first people to say anything about it. Because apparently you also forgot that a year earlier, Dean came in and pointed all this stuff out to you and you laughed in his face. So yeah, you guys are full of shit. This is an important section. Now to John Favreau. Hey, John. I'm sorry to be picking on you so directly. It just happened to be that you were doing a lot of talking on this last episode. And so you had lots of opportunities to say things that weren't true and that were easily fact-checked. So you're the guy that I'm sort of directing my ire at just now. But I want to be fair. So also I will point out, John, I'm focused on you because I can't remember the names of any of the other guys on the podcast. I vaguely remember them. So other than you, there's the one who's a robot who likes to talk about football. By the way, does he think that humanizes him? Does he think that he seems more like a real boy when he talks about liking sports? Because it really doesn't seem very sincere to me. And frankly, he still just seems like an alien trying to pretend to be human. He's just trying to pass as human. So that's that guy. There's also the really generic looking one who actually does make some good points sometimes. The soft-spoken guy, he actually makes some good points sometimes, but overall still a pretty forgettable face and personality. So wait, there's so we got the alien, the generic. Right. And of course the gay one. I don't know why he has his own separate funny podcast thing going on because it's really not very funny, but whatever, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade any more than I have already, so I'll just let that go. Oh, and also on the Biden betrayal, this really annoys me too. So during Biden's, I don't know if any people still remember this. During Biden's basement campaign, remember that? Remember when he was running for president, but like no one ever saw him? Yeah, during that campaign, it was publicly declared, I think probably more than once, that Joe Biden was going to be a one-term president. He was going to take over, he was going to right the ship, and then he was going to help foster new talent so that he could hand the reins off to some other responsible defender of democracy when his one term was over. That message was broadcast far and wide. And I know that because I actually voted in that election. And the reason why I did, because again, I say it's a terrible choice when you're desperate and when you're voting for, instead of voting for someone, you're just voting against the other person. That is a terrible situation to be in. But I accepted that was the situation I was in, and I decided to vote for Biden. And a major factor was that I believed that he was going to be a one-term president. I thought, this is only 4 years. I don't like Biden at all, but really anything would be better than Trump after the last 4 years. So yes, I will give it to Biden for 4 years, and then he'll get out of the way, and then maybe we'll finally see some progress. Nope. That was the message right up until the next election. Then all of a sudden, they were like, oh no, all of a sudden that was some low-ranking staffer, and no one in any position of any authority ever backed that claim. So it was just a rug pull. It was, that's just the theme of the time period, I guess, is, people are rug pulling in business. So why not rug pull in politics too? And that's what they did. They rug pulled us. They're like, nope, all Biden. And that did not go well. And then finally, and then he hands everything off to Kamala way too late. She doesn't get any support. She was a terrible choice to begin with. If she had ever been someone to consider for her candidacy, then they should have had her out there 2 years earlier, and they didn't. The only thing I remember from Kamala's time as vice president is when she went to the border and told people not to come. That is the only thing I can remember from her time as vice president. Can anyone else remember anything else she did? Anything? Yeah, I don't think so. So, complete betrayal. And then instead of ending up with, new talent coming up, we've got the same old heads yapping at us every night saying the same nonsense that they always say. Useless, no progress. What's the point? No change. Just stagnation. The Democratic Party just screams stagnation. And you pod boys, during the whole 4 years that Biden was in office, you didn't say anything about the fact that, hey, who's the new talent going to be? Who are they fostering? What's going on? You just were business as usual. Let's not try. Let's not rock the boat. Let's just keep getting interviews from the establishment Democrats that like to roll through and spread their propaganda every couple months. That's all you guys did. That's all you did. And now, still yesterday's episode, I just one of the last things I heard John saying, which made me grind my teeth, is that this is a two-party country, and that's that. And we have no choices, and so we have to support Democrats because there's no alternative. That's not true, buddy. Do you know so little about American politics that you don't understand? The reason why it's a two-party system is not because it's impossible for it to be different than that. It's because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party will stack the deck in every state to make it so much more difficult for third-party candidates to even be considered. If you want to run as a Democrat or a Republican, you need some number of thousands of signatures. If you want to be a third party candidate in any state, you need like 4 or 5 times more signatures. It's very obvious that Republicans and Democrats got together and they agreed state by state that they were going to create a system that made it impossible for third parties to get in. John, why are you saying it's not possible when you know it's possible? Is it because you want to ensure the status quo remains and that's really your only motivation? Yeah, I think so. That's why you're lying to people, saying that this is and always will be a two-party system and that there's no alternative to that, because that is a flat-out lie. I don't know. Go back to school, John. Learn some more stuff. Maybe then you'll be able to offer useful information to people instead of the absolute not. After John got done saying that we are a two-party system and there is no avoiding that, the next thing he said is that Stephen Colbert should run for president. Hey, John, please, please, please come up with some new ideas. I've already heard you say that Mark Cuban would be a great choice, and now you think Stephen Colbert. Guess what? Neither one of those guys is a good choice. Neither one of those guys is going to lead our country in an effective way that helps the average American. Are you a complete idiot? I said in my last video, no celebrities. No, I didn't say. I said no rich people, no business people. And I can't remember. I don't think I specifically mentioned no celebrities, but that has to be added to the list. No celebrities. Here's the bottom line. We already have enough narcissists in positions of power, and it's really not going that great for us. So stop suggesting we add more to the mix. It's just stupid. It's just obviously stupid. And the fact that you keep saying these obviously stupid things makes me worry that you have some kind of brain damage. So, no political industrial complex people. No rich idiots, no business people, no celebrities. That's what I'm adding to the list now. Please, for the love of God, no more celebrities. They are not helpful to any of us. The bottom line to all of this is that whether it's a politician or a podcaster, if they're not saying something new, then they're useless. If they're suggesting the same old things that they just keep saying, that we need to look forward and not look back, because if we look back, you'll notice all the mistakes we made that we don't want to be accountable for. So we got to look forward while taking steps back and reserving ourselves and being considerate and thinking about stuff and taking absolutely no action of any kind ever. That is not going to move this country forward. That is not going to improve anything. We need people with some actual ideas, some new ideas for a better way to do things, because the way things are being done right now is not good. It's actually very bad. It's actually very destructive. It's destructive economically. It's destructive politically. It's destructive from a humanitarian perspective. I call this dead principles for a reason. Everything that made this country good at one time is dying. And what's replacing it is, empty promises and just generally gaslighting. And that's not going to keep any of us fed or housed. So please, 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 if you have any interest in seeing things in this country ever get better, please ignore all of these stupid politicians and the stupid podcasters who interview them, because it's clear none of them have any interest in telling you anything you need to know. All they want to tell you is what they think you'll believe so that you keep listening to them. Don't do it.